Well, good evening and welcome everyone to our Clerks Against Domestic Violence during COVID-19. Clerks Against Domestic Violence during this situation we've been in our webinar. I'm Dane Weister, your Communications Director here at the Orange County Clerk of Courts. Thank you for joining us. We hope you find the information provided here by many of our presenters useful tonight. And as a reminder, you'll be able to submit questions through our Q&A function that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. So along the way, if you have a question, you can enter it through that system, the Q&A as you see here. Although we'll not actually be having a interactive question and answer segment, you can still submit your questions and we will try to get a private answer back to you with the information as quick as possible. Also, at the end of this workshop, a survey will be available for you to provide feedback and to help us to create new content going forward in the future and give us your feedback. So this workshop is being recorded and will be posted on our social media channels of the Orange County Clerk of Courts and on our website, which is myorangeclerk.com. We're going to start off with our Family Services Division and the Self-Help and Family Division Manager, Roberta Walton, and Deputy Clerk Team Leader, Carrie Coley, are going to share with us from the Clerk's Office how we can assist with restraining orders, also known as injunctions, for people who are in a dire situation. Roberta.
All right, thank you so much, Clerk Russell, for extending the invitation for your Family Services team to be a part of this presentation. And thank you, Dane, to you and Nicole for providing the outlet. I am attempting to share my screen. You all let me know if I'm successful. See if it's my night. All right, here we go. We're up and going. Okay, so first of all, again, as Dane stated, my name is Roberta Walton, and I am the Operations Manager for the Family Services Division with the Orange County Clerk of Courts, which includes an opportunity for individuals such as yourself to come out and, if needed, to file for an injunction for protection. So again, the civil injunctions for protection are a part of the Family Services Division. We have provided a presentation, well, we're getting ready to provide a presentation to you tonight, and I do have with me Carrie Coley, who is a Deputy Clerk Senior within the Family Services Division. We're going to kind of have a dual approach to this presentation. I'm going to kick it off and talk about just what is an injunction for protection, and talk a little bit about the elements and what's needed if you think that your life is endangered or there's an imminent threat posted against your life and you want to have a civil injunction for protection to safeguard you. What does that mean? And then Carrie is going to follow suit and share with you what to do when you come to our lobby in terms of filing for an injunction for protection. So exactly, what is an injunction for protection? It sounds like such a legal word, but what we really refer to it as is a restraining order. That is the popular term when you say an injunction for protection, which inevitably is a court order. It's a court order that is put into place that if a petitioner, and we say petitioner meaning an individual who has been victimized, who feels like their life is in danger, or who has experienced some act of violence or harassment. So that's a petitioner, and that person would come in and file a petition, and would, if the court finds, and we're going to talk a little bit about the elements, an injunction for protection would be entered. And that order really, it comes with a lot of restrictions on an individual, and we call that other individual the respondent, and that is the person who has committed the acts of violence or has made the threats of violence. So petitioner, the person who has been harmed or who is in fear for their life or has experienced the acts of violence. The respondent, which is the person who has committed them. So in order for protection, excuse me, getting tongue-tied, can include several requirements. And those requirements are really, as we look at them, prohibitions. So when you get that order, it's going to command that other person to eat, it possibly could command them to leave the home, not come to the school where the children attend, not go to church, or not show up at the other person's job or place of employment. It could include a temporary custody order. It could include child support. There's several prohibitions or several things, acts that the court could say, this is what I'm ordering. It could include that person going to receive counseling for anger management. So it's a couple of things that could come in that order of protection, and that's placed on the individual who has allegedly committed the violence. Now, here's the good part, because people oftentimes come into the clerk's office and say, I want to file for an injunction for protection. And, I spoke with law enforcement individual, or I spoke with a friend, and I shared with them what's going on, and they suggested I come down here and file. But there are 5 different types of civil injunction for protections. And each one differs in terms of the nature of the threat and the relationship to either the victim or the abuser. Okay, and so we're going to break them down just a second here so that you can distinguish between which type, if should you ever need to come into our lobby or you need to share this information with a loved one, which type of injunction for protection that you should come in and ask about. The first one and the most popular, domestic violence. A domestic violence injunction will be filed if an act of violence or an act of stalking has occurred. Now that's very important. I want you to remember I said that, because we're talking violence or stalking have occurred, and the petitioner, remember who the petitioner is, has a reasonable cause to believe it may occur again. Or if it hasn't occurred yet, you fear that it is going to happen, and you have reason to believe that that person is going to cause you harm. Now, here's the most important part, because when you heard me speak about relationships a few minutes ago, domestic violence, we always look at the relationship. The court looks at the relationship first, okay? So when I say relationship, it is domestic violence if we're talking about the person's spouse, a former spouse, or someone who's related by blood or marriage, or, because or is an important word, or have resided together as if they are a family. So they held themselves out to the public and to others as if they are a family unit, and or they are related by blood or marriage, or it's a spouse or a former spouse, okay? Or individuals who are residing together as a family, holding themselves out again, and have children in common, or you simply have children in common. So there are a couple of different ways. Again, we say relationship matters because we're talking blood, marriage, child in common, residing together, and holding yourself out as a unit, domestic violence. Now, if you are together in a relationship and you don't have children in common and you've never lived under the same roof together, it's not domestic violence. Let's move on. Stalking. A stalking violence, a stalking violence restraining order can be filed if someone intentionally or purposely follows or harasses you repeatedly over a period of time. Again, that's the important part about stalking. Repeatedly over a period of time. And if in doing so, that person threatens your life or threatens to harm you in any way with the intent to make you fear for your life, it enhances that into an aggravated stalking violation. So again, stalking violence is someone intentionally following or harassing you repeatedly over a period of time. Now, keep in mind, if someone is intentionally harassing you and they're doing it with an intent to harass you, but they've only did it once, that's not stalking, because repeatedly over a period of time. Repeat, excuse me. Repeat violence is the third one I want to discuss with you tonight. And a repeat violence restraining order is when there's been 2 acts of violence or stalking. Keep in mind, 2 acts of violence or stalking on 2 separate occasions. Now, if you were in front of me right now, I would say 2 separate occasions within the past 6 months, because these types of actions usually happen when you have those neighbors that are fighting and just really seeking to get on and harass each other and get on each other's nerve, and then it results into some type of violent act. Co-workers, and those non-domestic, non-dating, not an intimate relationship, but a relationship nonetheless, and an act of violence has spurred its ugly head, and it's happened more than once, and it's happened within the last 6 months. At least one of those incidents, okay? At least one of those incidents has occurred within the last 6 months. Now, if you have a situation where there has been a couple of acts of violence between you and this neighbor, and you guys are just really duking it out, but that was 2 years ago, and you two hadn't spoke since, it's not repeat violence. It has to be within the past 6 months, at least one of those incidents. Next is sexual violence. And of course, this is certainly a very serious offense, and a very, it's a very emotional offense as well. But this is the civil side of a sexual violence restraining order. So it is, a sexual violence restraining order can be filed when there is sexual battery involved, or a lewd or lascivious act involving someone who is younger than the age of 16. When there's luring or enticing a child, or child molestation, sexual performance by a child, and any other type of felony where a sexual act has been committed or attempted. See, that's very important. Committed or attempted. And I put that and in there, made it bold, made it plain and clear, because it's everything here. And so that's important, because the and part is you have to report it to law enforcement, or you have to be dealing with a respondent that has been sentenced to prison, and the term has expired, or it's due to expire within the next 90 days. Okay, so that person committed one of these acts over here, and they got sentenced to prison, and the prison sentence is getting ready to expire, or has already expired. The last one I share with you is dating violence. And dating violence is exactly what it says. You may file a dating violence restraining order if violence or stalking has occurred, and if the petitioner has reasonable cause to believe that it may occur again, or that it hadn't occurred yet and you have reason to believe that it will occur. And again, we're back onto relationships. Okay, so, and the relationships exist. So let's talk about the relationships that must exist for dating violence. We're talking about an individual who you've been in a dating relationship with within the last 6 months. So within the past 6 months or so, you've been dating this individual, and there was some type of intimate relationship between the two of you. There was, sexual involvement. There was intimacy. And you have been involved with this person over time and on a continuous basis. Okay, so this doesn't include that occasional flirt that you have. Oh, I see him all the time in Starbucks. He's always flirting with me. It's making me feel uncomfortable. It doesn't include that. You must be involved in with that person over time on a continuous basis. It must be an intimate relationship, and that relationship has to be within the past 6 months. Okay, so it has to be a relationship that's right now, that we just finished dating, or you know, and something happened. So that's the dating violence, because this can be distinguished between domestic violence, because why? They've not shared a roof together. They don't live in the same residence. And keep in mind, I've talked about repeat violence, dating violence, domestic violence. We talked about the relationships, but all three of those also include a stalking component. Okay, we get a lot of people that come in and say he's stalking me, and think the stalking petition is the only one that's available, and that's not the case. All of them have a stalking component. So now I'm going to turn it over to Carrie, and I want Carrie to share with you a little bit about what you will expect when you come into the lobby and you are interested in filing for a civil injunction for protection with the Orange County Clerk of Courts. Go ahead, Carrie.
Hi, I'm Carrie Coley, and just wanted to let you know when you come to file a restraining order, there's no filing fees. So there's no monies required to do this in order for you to get the protection that you need. Filing a restraining order, you're going to file your petition. That petition is going to go to the judge for review. The judge is going to return an answer to you. That answer could be denying your petition. The judge can order a temporary injunction or order setting a hearing. At that point, the clerks will go over with you what you'll have to do in those instances, and then we'll go from there on how you proceed with either your hearing or writing a supplemental to your denied petition. Next slide, please. You will file your restraining order in the county that you reside, in the county that the respondent resides, or in the county that the action took place in. You're going to file at the downtown courthouse on the 3rd floor in room 320, and we're open from 7:30 to 4. Next slide, please. As part of COVID-19, domestic violence hearings are now held virtual through Microsoft Teams, and the worksheet is provided to you explaining on how you're going to sign up for Microsoft Teams, submit your evidence through an email, and get the link for the court hearing from the judge's assistants. The court will also provide you with how to prepare for a witness and provide you with information on how to present your evidence and other documentations you're going to need for your hearing. Next slide. You also have the opportunity either before or after you file your petition to speak to any of the people up in the 520 or Harbor House. They can help you with safety plans. They can help you write your statement. They can help translate your statement from Spanish to English. They can provide all kinds of resources for you as you're going through this event in your life. Next. You can also file 24 hours a day through Florida Court's e-filing system. We review those documents and get those petitions filed to the judge just the same. If ever you feel you're in danger, you need to just call 911. Also remember that Harbor House is available for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Once a temporary injunction is filed, or a final injunction, and the respondent or the other party violates that, you must call law enforcement to report it and then come to the courthouse to file your violation on that.
While there are several additional tips to share with you, and this is information that our collaborative partners, the Harbor House, will provide if you ever need to seek out safety planning. But we just wanted to make sure you were aware that if your abuser monitors your internet use and you are attempting to file for a civil injunction for protection, make sure you take some precautions. If you have reason to believe that individual will access your computer or has the capacity to access your computer and or your email address. We suggest you change your email address or start a new one, and or clear out and delete all browsing history immediately when you, as soon as you finish using a computer at your home or one that he or she may have access to, because it could create an unsafe environment for you if someone finds that information that you share with the court. So while I do understand we're not going to have an active Q&A session, we would ask if you have any questions for the Family Services Division, please list them in the chat, and Carrie and I will do our best to respond.
Thank you very much, ladies. Good presentation. We have been getting questions in. To clarify, it is our Q&A portion of the screen you see there. The chat you can't really comment through chat. Also, we've seen some people trying to raise their hand. We actually ask you not to raise your hand, but to submit your question in through the Q&A segment icon at the bottom of your screen. And then we have a panel of people here who can answer your question. So thank you for that insightful information. And more information on our family services and our self-help center, you can always go to our website, myorangeclerk.com. Up next now, we have Harbor House of Central Florida's CEO, Michelle Spurzl, who's going to share some information with us on resources from Harbor House. Michelle, thank you for joining us.
Hello, and thank you very much for having me. I hope that everybody can see my screen. If I can get a thumbs up from our panelists, because I know that you guys can see more than I can. Perfect. All right. So my name is Michelle Spurzl. I'm the CEO of Harbor House, and I want to say thank you for the Clerk of Court for inviting me to be able to be part of the domestic violence awareness event this month. Every October is domestic violence awareness, but at Harbor House and with the Clerk of Courts, we're working together to consistently raise awareness when it comes to domestic violence. I appreciate the team so much and all the great information that Roberta just went over as well. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit more about Harbor House. She did a really good job of letting you know what we do within the courthouse, and we're going to talk through some of our other services that we have. All right. So Roberta went over the statute, and what I want everybody to focus on is the fact that for domestic violence, when we're looking at it, when Harbor House is looking at it, we're looking beyond the actual statute definition. And so we're talking about emotional abuse, verbal abuse, psychological abuse, financial control, isolating somebody, all things that can be written into the narrative for an injunction for protection, but not something that as far as legally they're going to be looking at. But when we're looking at all of our different services, that's something we're looking at to be able to help survivors. And really, when you're coming to Harbor House, we follow what we call the empowerment philosophy. And the idea behind that is that really we're working with different survivors that have their choices, they've been taken away from them from a long period of time. And so we want to be able to give survivors knowledge so that they can be able to make their own personal choices. And when you start making your own personal choices, you start to gain and take back control of your life. And so that's why we follow the empowerment philosophy. And we do that within all aspects of the services that we provide, within safety planning, within our legal part, within housing, everything you can think of, we use the empowerment-based philosophy. And it's really important because perpetrators have slowly and systematically dismantled a survivor's efforts to maintain their personal power, and we want to be able to give it back. So if you think about that one time that you made an awesome decision in your life and the confidence that it gave you, that's what we're doing, and that's what we're talking about. And then also all of our services are self-referral and voluntary. So something else to keep in mind when you are looking at referring someone to Harbor House, that it's something that they are going to be referring themselves to our program. So I'm going to go really briefly over just our programs, then talk about our core services. A lot of times when people think about Harbor House, they think about our emergency hotline and our shelter services. Absolutely, that is what we're known for. That is what we do. And that falls underneath our residential services. We also have an on-site kennel for dogs and cats and any other pet that's living in the household, because we want to make sure that an entire family can be safe. We do a lot of on-site childcare and youth services that are listed here as well. Outreach, we have 12 locations that we do outreach services. The courthouse is definitely one of those, but we also have co-located advocates within law enforcement and also co-located advocates within different Department of Children and Family offices. And then we have our own standalone offices. So when we're talking about domestic violence services, as far as the Department of Children and Family is concerned, each domestic violence center across the state of Florida has to provide some core services. And those core services are really important because that's what you're going to see across the state, and we're all the same. And then we have additional services. But let me just talk through the core services that you're going to see with all of the domestic violence centers across the state of Florida. Emergency shelter is definitely one of them, 24 hours or more. And when we're talking about emergency shelter, it's somebody who has experienced domestic violence. We are not a homeless shelter. We are primarily a domestic violence shelter. There are times where we will shelter somebody who is a victim of human trafficking. And the reason why is because a lot of times domestic violence and human trafficking happen, or abuse happens within a human trafficking situation. We also have our 24-hour hotline. And then we also have counseling. The counseling is for our outreach offices in addition to our shelter services. And that's when we talk through about what is domestic violence. We do risk assessments, and we also do lethality assessments with individuals. And when I'm talking about a lethality assessment, we're asking questions so we can find out, has the violence within the home, or the violence within the dating relationship, or the violence within the relationship in general, has it escalated? And so we ask questions about, has it been verbal abuse? Has the verbal abuse turned into physical abuse? What does that physical abuse actually seem like? What does it feel like? And we ask those questions so we can really help the survivor understand what type of situation that they're in. Because if it is a lethal situation, we want to be able to help the survivor best safety plan. We also, for core services, do assessment of children. Any of the kids who come into our emergency shelter or on campus, they are also evaluated for basic needs. We do a lot of direct service information and referral. And so we are a community partner. We cannot do domestic violence work in Orange County and in Central Florida without the assistance of amazing partners like the Clerk of Courts, like the Victim Service Center, for instance, Second Harvest, also Catholic Charities. So we really rely on our community and all the amazing nonprofits and other service providers to be able to help our survivors of that domestic violence. And so we do referrals to them specifically over the phone, by email, or even by mail sometimes. And one of our biggest, I would say, needs, or one of the biggest referrals that we make, is we make one to iDignity, because a lot of times survivors, when they're fleeing, they leave everything behind. And iDignity is one of our service providers that helps provide identification for individuals. Another thing that's a core service is case or service management. And that is where the rubber meets the road. This is where we have advocates that are meeting one-on-one with a survivor and really talking to them about, what is it that you need? What is it that is unique to your situation? Do you need a job? Do you need a car? Are you looking for housing? What can we do to be able to best help you? And we do that right after someone's been with us. A lot of times someone comes into the emergency shelter and we're really just getting them sleep, and they are definitely de-escalating. And within 72 hours, we have that first conversation with them about what it is that you want out of your stay here at Harbor House. And it's a little bit different with outreach. We do the case management from the first office visit when someone's coming in. Community education like this. This is another thing that we do. Professional training. We just did our first ever domestic violence conference. We also do a lot of training with law enforcement. And then safety planning. So I talked a little bit about safety planning, but safety planning is so important that it's one of the core services that we want to make sure we provide, and we provide it throughout all of our services, our child care program, our court program, our emergency shelter, also our 24-hour hotline. Any place that you're going to be interacting with an advocate within Harbor House, you're going to end up getting some sort of individualized safety planning. And I like to say that because it's not cookie cutter. It's not a form where we go through and we check boxes. It is really listening to somebody, listening to the victim, listening to the survivor, and finding out how we can help you stay safe, whether you're living at home with the abuser, whether you're not with the abuser, or you're even here in emergency shelter. So I talked about the fact that we have core services and then additional services. So one of the ones I want to make sure, there's two that I make sure that we highlight because we're partnering with Clerk of Courts, would be, we have two different types of legal programs. One is that we have Injunction for Protection attorneys, and they are really there on the 5th floor to help provide legal assistance as far as advice and also represent in the injunction for protection cases. And so what has been a phenomenal, this has been a phenomenal addition to our programming. We've had the program for about 4 years right now. And this is where we've seen the greatest increase of the number of people coming to us because of COVID. We never closed, the courthouse never closed, the Clerk of Courts never closed during COVID. We were all there and operational. And one thing we found is that a lot of people have been seeking injunctions, and then our lawyers have been really, really busy providing advice and then also helping represent. The same thing with our court advocates. So the difference between the two, the difference between a lawyer and our advocates would be our advocates can go in and go into a hearing, but they can't talk. The lawyers can. The advocates are there for moral support and also to give someone experience as to what to expect. And so they don't give legal advice, but what they give is a lot of basically practical information, helping someone understand the difference between the different injunctions, as Roberta really kindly went over all the different types. And then we also want to make sure that we are able to talk through all the different things that are happening. I want to note one thing that's on here as far as advocates deputized by their local clerk of courts. We don't have that here in Orange County, but we do have different clerks of courts that have deputized advocates across the state. And so that's why it's in there. And then same thing with court watch programs. We don't have that in Orange County, but it is something that happens in other parts of the state. Other additional services would be the youth program. So we have our prevention program where we're in schools and we're working with kids, we're working with youth and also teachers so that they can understand dating violence and also domestic violence. Really the idea behind our prevention program and our youth programs in general is that we want to break the cycle of domestic violence within the family. And the only way we can do that is by working with kids and let them know that there's other ways for them to solve their issues within a relationship and you don't have to resort to violence. So we're doing that with our youth programs within the schools, but we're also doing it with our court programs that we have when we have teen court. And we're doing a lot with the teens in teen court as far as teaching them different skills as well. In shelter, we have our on-site childcare program. We have a lot of parenting classes that people might not expect. We have a lot of individuals who come in who are pregnant or new moms. And so we have basically a young mothers group where we're really teaching kids, we're teaching them about how do you raise kids, how do you work with a baby. We talk to them about swaddling. We're going to be partnering with Orlando Health on getting lactation specialists in because that is a need that we have. We also have teen support groups that are here because living in shelter as a teenager is incredibly hard. Being a teenager is hard, but then you're living in a shelter and you don't really know everything that's going on in your own personal life. And so we want to make sure that the teens have specialized groups and that they're able to be heard by their advocates as well. We also have play therapy here on site, and we're super excited about that. And we were talking about, when I went through a lot of our youth programming, we have camps that are throughout the year called Trailblazers. Those are here on site. And then we also have some stay away camps that we're doing with our youth that are basically living in the home with the abuser might be present. And we're really beginning to build out those outreach services that we have for our youth that are living in a domestic violence situation, or they're living in a situation where they've gotten away, the abuser is no longer in their lives, but they're still trying to deal with the trauma that's happened in their life. We also have our CPI project where we're co-located with Child Protective Investigating Division. Our plan there and our goal there is to be the experts to the CPIs, the investigators, so that they know more about domestic violence and we can explain some of the dynamics about domestic violence. And so we're helping them hold perpetrators accountability to the case plan, not just the non-offending parent. Some of the other pieces that we have, because I don't want to go over time, would be that we have our INVEST program, and that's working with law enforcement, and we're making sure that we're working with them to identify individuals either on scene or in a hospital that might need some services. And the goal there is to reduce domestic violence, homicides, and repeat violence. And as Roberta was talking about, when we're talking about repeat violence, we're talking about domestic violence. And so when we're talking about repeat that piece, that's why the INVEST project is so very, very important. A big piece that we're going to see, and this is related to COVID-19, I have a couple slides at the end to talk through COVID, but is this piece right here. We know that one of the number one reasons someone stays in a domestic violence situation is they can't afford to leave. And so we have a huge economic justice program that's going to just continue to grow. And that's out of necessity of everything that's happening within our local economy and everything that's happening nationally. And so that piece we're going to hear more about from Harbor House. We also have housing, and our housing would be that we have advocates that are doing the case management. We have transitional housing. We also have extended stay here on site. The difference between this housing and the emergency shelter is very, very easy. Emergency shelter is 12 weeks and it's emergency. Transitional housing is going to be someplace where someone can stay with us a year, and the same thing with extended stay shelter. But extended stay shelter is located on our campus, whereas transitional housing is located someplace within Orange County. We also have trauma projects, because the idea is we want to have people heal from trauma, and we want to be able to work with a survivor's emotional safety, their emotional well-being, in addition to the physical safety. And one way we do that is by having meditation and mindfulness programs. We have yoga classes that we have with the survivors, both adults and also youth. And then we also have meditation that we will be leading with survivors as well. And this is in the shelter and also in our outreach program. Finally, I talked a little bit about our kennel. And the idea is that we want to make sure that everybody can come into our emergency shelters. Sometimes animals in a family are the first victims. And that's one reason why we have our Pause for Peace kennel. And also, while someone's staying here, we know that the pets can provide unconditional love. And finally, with our other services would be our volunteers. We couldn't do the work that we do without them. With COVID, our numbers have definitely gone down. And any given year, we basically, volunteers provide nearly $250,000 worth of services. And you can see, because of COVID, our numbers have been down. And that's really because we've been not letting a lot of people on site. Here are the different fundraising events and awareness events that we have. Purple Door Luncheon, it was supposed to be this month, but because of COVID, we canceled it. That's our largest fundraising event. And so it's great for us to still do awareness things like this. And then any of the other events that you see on here, you can always find out more about it on our Harbor House website or by going to our Facebook page. And here's the impact I wanted to talk about real quick about COVID-19. So we have remained open this entire time, ever since COVID started. And what we ended up doing is that we reduced our shelter capacity in order for it to be safe for individuals to be socially distanced. We have a school on site. We did that in the spring, and then we reopened the school. So a lot of the kids who are here don't have to go off site. Some of the parents have chosen to have that, but other kids are here, and we're doing virtual schooling. We have a quarantine room. So if someone is living in the emergency shelter, they start exhibiting signs of COVID-19, we ask them to go get tested. Then they come back and we put them in the quarantine room until they find out what their results are. We also have text and advocate, which is one thing that happened with the fact that a lot of times abusers were in the room and survivors were unable to reach out to us because they couldn't call. So we started a text and advocate program so someone could still reach out to us. Of course, I talked about the increase that we've had in some of our different programs. We started a food program because we are also seeing a lot of food insecurity across Orange County and a lot of the food insecurity that we're seeing within our families. So we launched one specifically for our outreach program that happened in September that we launched it. And so far we've been able to help over 120 families with food at least once a month, if not more. We started a friends and family support group, and that really happened because we had a lot of people who during shutdown, they were really concerned about their friends, their family members who were experiencing domestic violence, and they didn't know how to help. And so we created a support group so someone could call in and get ideas and advice on how to best handle working with their friends, their family members, and how do you take care of yourself when you're so worried about someone in a domestic violence situation. Unfortunately, all of our events that were in person were canceled, and that goes along with a lot of other nonprofits. And again, we saw the decrease in a number of volunteers. So what's next? We are really expecting that when we have the eviction moratorium, we're already seeing an impact from that and people who are calling to come into emergency shelter. And we know that's only going to increase. We typically get really busy in January and February, as does the Clerk of Courts, when people are really trying to stay together during Christmas and also during Thanksgiving. And then holidays are over and people are just like, okay, I can't do this anymore. And so we know that January, February is going to be really, really busy. We have plans in place in order to help in case we end up being full at that time. And one of them involves working with the county to get rapid testing for our shelters so that we know that someone who's coming in is not is COVID free. So that sums up my very quick but long presentation about Harbor House, and that we're more than just a shelter and all the different things that we've been experiencing with COVID. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Michelle. So if you don't mind me asking a question, because you were talking about just briefly how your shelter numbers, you decreased them because of COVID, but during this time, we've been hearing possibility that you would be seeing more people. So how do you deal with that? And then you get ready for January and February.
Yes. So what we're doing is that we're looking to see how we can increase our bed space, kind of like a rollout plan that we even saw here in the county. So right now we would say that we are still in, I would say we're still in phase 1, and then we're going to be looking to see how do we get to phase 2. So we're looking to see how we continue to have social distance within our emergency shelter, but add beds. And so the idea is that we're going to be adding them in the increments of 10 until we get back up to our full capacity. And we're hoping by the time we get there that we're going to end up being closer to a vaccine. The other thing that we're doing is we're looking at other community partners who have housing so that we can provide the services for domestic violence where housing might be someplace else. We have different CARES Act money that I've earmarked specifically for hotel stays. And we know that that will go really, really quickly, but at least it's an option. So it might be that we have someone who's staying here, they only need 1 or 2 nights, and it might be that that makes more sense for them to be over in a safe hotel or an anonymous hotel than coming into the emergency shelter. And so those are some of the plans that we have in addition to just all the cleaning protocols that we have, which we have a lot. We're cleaning the shelter every 30 minutes, in addition to bringing cleaning crews, because our big thing is that we want to make sure that people, one, feel safe coming in, and once they get here, that they continue to be safe.
Great, very good. We appreciate you joining us again. This is Harbor House of Central Florida CEO Michelle Spurzell sharing great information with us. And again, they could reach out to you, website, 24-hour hotline, all the services that people can contact you for. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so very much.
All right, thanks. So moving on with our Clerks Against Domestic Violence during COVID-19 workshop and webinar. If you've just joining us, we actually are taking questions if you have some. All you got to do is click on that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, submit your question that way, type it in. We have people that can answer. Our panelists are helping answer. We've got some people here at the clerk's office can help answer. And one of the common questions we're getting is about getting the PowerPoint presentation. Well, we are recording this webinar and we will be posting it on our website and our social media pages within the next couple of days. So you can look for that at myorangeclerk.com in the news section. We'll have the video. You can replay it, look at see and then hear the entire presentation from there. So that's one of the common questions we've been getting. Those of you joining us, we're going to be moving on from here with our next presenter. And we have up next, Emily Mitchell with the Victim Service Center of Central Florida, who's going to speak with us about stalking and cyberstalking. Thank you for joining us, Emily.
Thank you so much. And thank you to the Clerk of Courts for hosting us this evening. My name is Emily Mitchell. I'm with the Victim Service Center of Central Florida. I'm going to also attempt to share my screen, which is always, fingers crossed, but hopefully it gets all golden. So let me try one more time. Sometimes this happens. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Sorry, y'all, 1 second.
That's okay. It can be difficult navigating the technology sometimes.
It can. Here we go.
There we go.
Play. Okay, do you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. Hi, so yes, hello, good evening. My name's Emily Mitchell, and I'm here with the Victim Service Center of Central Florida. Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about our services that we provide, kind of who do we service, where do we service, what do those services look like? And then I'm going to be talking a little bit about stalking and cyberstalking. And, Roberta went over a great definition of what stalking is, but I'm going to go a little into maybe how we can safely protect ourselves from things like stalking and cyberstalking specifically. So with that in mind, starting off, you know, the Victim Service Center is essentially a nonprofit organization that provides free, individualized services and resources to victims of trauma. That trauma can include sexual assault, it can include any kind of violent crime or traumatic circumstances. And what's important to know is that it doesn't matter when the trauma occurred. The trauma could have happened today. It could have happened years and years ago. We at the Victim Service Center understand that, and we're able to provide services to individuals no matter when the trauma occurred. And we do that in a variety of different ways that I'm going to go over. So we do that through, you know, crisis response, advocacy, which is similar to what Michelle was going over as far as advocates, therapy, and then community awareness, which is where I come in. But with that being said, where do we serve, right? So we're actually the certified rape crisis center for Orange, Seminole, and Osceola County. We have offices in each of those counties there. We have in Orange County, we have our South Downtown Orlando office, which is where I work out of, but I'm home right now. We also have a Longwood office, Academy office as well. That being said, if someone, you know, contacted the Victim Service Center and they weren't in one of these counties, we would still be able to, you know, provide services. This is just where we're certified as a rape crisis center for Orange, Seminole, and Osceola. And down there, you can see pictures of our offices there. So what are the kind of victimizations that we often see? So I'm going to go over a few of them. And again, this is just a highlight so people understand that there's different types of victimization. A lot of the people that we service have been victimized multiple ways. And so these are just some of the common ones that we see. So it includes elder abuse, homicide survivors, human trafficking, robbery or home invasion, physical assault, domestic violence, secondary victims. So we do have primary victims, which are the people who go through the trauma firsthand, but then we have supporters of that person, right? So those are known as the secondary victims. So luckily we are able to also service secondary victims too. A lot of the survivors that we see are adults abused as children. So that is a common person that we service. Also sexual assault, drunk driving victimization, and stalking and harassment. So you can see it's a big umbrella of victimization of violence, and we are able to service. This isn't a complete list, but these are the types of victimizations that we can service. And how do we do that? So starting off, we have our crisis counselors or victim advocates. They're all master's level, they're trauma informed, they're ACT trained, which is advocacy core training through the Florida Council Against Sexual Violence. And what's really important is that they're completely confidential through this Florida statute, which means, as Michelle was mentioning, if they go through the courts, they don't share any information. All information that they have is just between them and their client. So they're actually not allowed to testify in court. And a lot of our victim advocates are also bilingual as well. One of the main services that we really provide to victims and survivors of trauma is that 24/7 crisis helpline, which is down there. It's 407-500-HEAL or HEAL. And that is 24/7, completely confidential. Anyone can call at any time and it'll be answered by one of these crisis counselors. Another service that they provide is case management. So like Michelle was mentioning, the Victim Service Center, just like Harbor House, really does partner with and rely with our partners in the community. And so we refer them to our partners. We also can help through the criminal justice system, but at like an emotional level, we can help them with injunctions as well. And really just hold the hand or walk with that survivor. We can also help with victims' compensation and filing for that as well. We also do accompaniment, court accompaniment as well, and forensic exams, which I'll get into in the next slide here. And we also can provide crisis counseling, which includes crisis intervention to really help ground that person, and safety planning as well. So that is our advocacy side as far as our services. On the other side, the forensic side, We can also, as a certified rape crisis crisis center, we can provide, we can collect DNA evidence and store that evidence for survivors of sexual violence. So a survivor within 120 hours or 5 days of a sexual assault occurring can actually call our 24-hour helpline. They can go to one of our 2 confidential forensic exam locations, and a SANE nurse, or a sexual assault nurse examiner, who is a nurse that had to get special certification just to do this particular type of service, will be dispatched, as well as a victim advocate, who is the person who actually answered the 24-hour helpline. So the same person, they'll meet the survivor at that confidential location, which is one of our sexual assault treatment centers, and they'll collect that evidence and store that evidence for that survivor, whether or not they decide to report. We can also, SANE nurses can do trial testimony, unlike advocates. And they can also do some medical intervention. They can provide Plan B or prophylaxis as well. And again, the survivor doesn't need to decide in that moment if they want to report, but we can store that evidence for them. And this is, again, completely free service. So that's another service. And the last direct service that I'm going to be talking about today is our therapy department. So after the survivor has gone through the crisis counseling and has been grounded, they can also be referred to our therapy department. And this is individualized, it's free, again, confidential. What's really important about this is that there's actually no cap to the services. So if, it's not like, oh, you get 8 sessions and then you're done. No, we're able to provide unlimited services. And we also have support groups too. So we have survivor meetups, we have a men's group, we have a women's group, we have a mixed gender. We also have a rainbow resilience group, which is just for LGBTQ+ survivors. We also do have a Spanish speaking support group, and we do have a Black survivors support group as well. All of our therapists are trauma informed, which means that they really understand trauma, and they use certain therapies that are specialized for survivors of trauma. So that is another free service that we provide to survivors in the community. Another thing that we do is outreach and education. So part of our outreach program is our volunteer program. This is not a complete list whatsoever, but these are some of the things that you can do if you'd like to become a volunteer at the Victim Service Center. We definitely couldn't be, where we are today without our amazing volunteers. It's really individualized, and if you're interested in becoming a volunteer, feel free to reach out. You can give us a call as well, but it's a great opportunity. That being said, the other service that we provide is education. That's where my role is. I'm actually the education coordinator here at the Victim Service Center. Basically, my job is to go out like I'm doing now and talk about different violence prevention topics, basically. So that includes sexual assault awareness, sexual harassment, also active bystander training, healthy dating relationships, bullying, and actually stalking as well, which is what I'm going to be talking about now. I pulled some slides from our longer training, so I can't go too into depth with stalking, but I'm going to go a little bit into what it is and different things that we can safeguard. But those are the services that we provide. What's really important about the Victim Service Center too during COVID is we're open, and we've stayed and remained open during COVID-19. A lot of our services have gone to telehealth. So our therapy and our advocacy is online, but also we do have some in person. We also are, for example, our forensic collection services that we provide. Those we just have extra screening. We have precautions. Our SANE nurses have the specific garb that they're supposed to wear. So we've been cleaning and keeping everyone safe through screening questions as recommended by the Department of Disease Control. So that is information about the VSC. So now I'm going to delve in a little bit into stalking, which Roberta did a great job kind of breaking down exactly what stalking is. So essentially, it's a pattern of behavior directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to feel fear. And what's really important, like Roberta mentioned, is that it's repeated. It's repeated a lot, and it can look a few different ways. And what I really want to get into, especially in the cyber world that we're living in during COVID-19, is cyberstalking. So cyberstalking includes, communication through words, images, or language through the use of electronic communication to a specific person, causing substantial emotional distress and serving no legitimate purpose. So as you can see, it can kind of be diverse. But cyberstalking is real, and it's important that we kind of highlight it, especially during this time, during COVID-19. I'm also going to be showing now some different statistics here. The reason I'm going to be doing it is because to show kind of how common this is. And what's also really important to highlight is these are just reported numbers whenever I share statistics. So please keep it with a grain of salt. But basically, 1 in 6 women and 1 in 19 men have been stalked in their lifetime, which is a huge number. 85% of stalking victims actually know their stalker. So a lot of times we think that stalkers are these strangers, but actually most of the time it's someone that the victim knows. And what's also really important to highlight here, especially during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, is 2/3 of the people who have reported that they were stalked, that were women, were stalked by an intimate partner. So this is a big deal within domestic violence relationships and intimate partner violence relationships. And so, for example, 81% of women who were stalked by a current or former partner were also physically assaulted, and 31% were sexually assaulted. And so you can see kind of the multiple victimizations that I was mentioning before. It's the reason why I bring this up is because I think stalking is kind of a hard thing for people to identify. So especially if it's happening within an intimate partner relationship, people might not even realize that they are being stalked. So when we see these numbers on the top left over there, it could even be higher because people might not even know that what's happening is actually stalking. And people ages 18 to 24 experience the highest rate of stalking. So it's happening a lot in younger relationships and younger people as well. And actually 7.5 million people are stalked in 1 year, which is an amazing number. That being said, I wanted to kind of go over some signs of stalking as well, because again, it's hard to identify sometimes. So again, not a complete list, but damaging your home, car, or other property, repeatedly calling or including hang-ups, which is important. Posting information or spreading rumors about you is a sign. Following you and showing up wherever you are, that's a more obvious sign. But also sending unwelcome gifts, cards, texts, or emails, threatening to hurt you, family, friends, or pets. Driving by or hanging out at your home, school, or work, monitoring your phone calls or your computer use, using technology such as hidden cameras or GPS to track where you go, which has that cyber stalking element. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the stalking using technology. And first, one of the myths surrounding stalking is that the stalkers are these tech geniuses, when in reality, that isn't the case. So what's important to know is that there's technology. It's not as difficult to do this as one would think. So stalking using technology can include, texting or sexting, spyware. It could include monitoring their computer. It could also include GPS, email spoofing, or social media as well. So that's important to highlight. So now I'm going to go over so how can we keep kind of ourselves safe, especially during COVID-19, against cyber stalking, right? These are just some general tips. So for example, use safer computers or devices like at a library, work, or school. You can create alternative email accounts using a safer computer as well. Set up 2-step verification on online accounts. What's important to know, especially for your email, is if someone is able to hack into your email and control it, and that email is connected to all these different social media accounts, bank accounts. They can easily change your password, right? And so that's why it's really important that you set up that two-step verification on online accounts and get a really strong password for your email. Also keep webcams out of personal spaces, cover the lens or point it to a wall if you can. Enable a firewall on your computer and use antivirus software. And also create new usernames, passwords for accounts, and use unknown combination of letters, numbers, and characters as well. So these are just some general tips. And then the last thing I'm going to kind of go over is, how to disable or turn off location on your navigation services and Bluetooth on your phone. This is really important stuff too. So make sure your phone is not connected to other devices. Delete apps that you do not use or not familiar with. Create a passcode for accessing your phone as well. Disable your phone's auto answer option if it has one. Get a new phone with new account information if it's very serious. And again, what's important to know that these are just general tips. No matter what, it's never your fault if you find yourself to be the victim of stalking. And this is also not, I can't go into the depths of stalking and cyberstalking in like 20 minutes. So if you are still wondering and if you think you might be a victim of stalking and you still have questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to the Victim Service Center. We do have that 24-hour helpline. We also have an office line, which is our office is open 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday, I should say. Also, if you have additional questions, that's my email right there. I'm more than happy to assist with that. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you're more than welcome to. We have an Instagram, we have a YouTube channel. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about our podcast because we actually did an entire episode on stalking. So if you're interested in listening to it, it's just VSC Podcast. You can find it wherever you find podcasts, like Apple Podcasts, things like that. And it's also on our YouTube channel as well. But I hope that was helpful. And thank you so much again, Clerk of Courts, for inviting me today.
That was very helpful. Thank you, Emily. Actually, wanted to ask you a question that we had typed in. Someone is asking if your organization helps with human trafficking survivors.
We do help with human trafficking survivors. That is definitely one of the victimizations that we see some of our clients having. So we can assist with that. And also we do have partners in the community that specialize in human trafficking as well. So we can help with that too.
Okay, and if somebody needs to get in touch again, how can they contact Victim Service Center?
Yeah, so they can contact us on our 24-hour helpline, which is 407-500-HEAL, HEAL. And they can also contact us at our office line, but that 24/7 helpline is a really good number to have. You or a friend, you may never know when you need it. It's a good one to have in your phone.
Great, thank you very much for sharing all those resources, great information from the Victim Service Center. And moving on, we're going to, well, I just want to reiterate for those who may have just joined us or coming in and out of our presentation. Again, if you have a question, submit it through the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll try to get those questions answered to you. One of the questions we had earlier was about injunction hearings, asking if those hearings here at the courthouse and the Clerk of Courts are going to be held virtually. Well, they are being held virtually right now. In the future, that could change with court administration, with the United Judicial Circuit. So we just await on them to see if that's going to change. But as of right now, injunction hearings are being held virtually. So now moving on to the last part of our Clerks Against Domestic Violence Forum, we have officers from the Orlando Police Department who are going to share with us some pretty good stuff related to self-defense. It's a self-defense class. Now, usually, see, they're getting ready there. Hopefully you can see that. Usually when we do this event, live, like in person, this is a cool presentation. So let's see what it's going to look like virtually. So joining us with the self-defense class are OPD officers Kirkpatrick and Officer Patterson. Take it away, gentlemen and ladies. Okay, you guys are muted right now. So there we go. We'll unmute.
Hello, sorry about that.
That's all right. Now we hear you.
Kirkpatrick, Officer Rich Patterson is assisting me, and he's going to be answering any questions that you may have. I'm joined on the stage by these two fantastic patrol officers, Officer Maria Slottick and Officer Rebecca Matviak. They're going to be assisting me and kind of like beating me up. Again, thank you for allowing us to be part of this fantastic event. It was really fun to do it in person last year. I believe it was at the, it was in District 2 at the Inglewood Community Center, and we had a fantastic turnout there. And we're gonna continue on with that, even though it's gonna be virtual. So again, let's keep in mind that no one is telling you to defend yourself. You have a right not to, and or you have a right to defend yourself. We're gonna give you some options to consider to address a sudden attack. We're not going to teach you how to square off and get into an MMA ring because we don't have the time. But understand that you do not have to fight. You do not have to defend yourself. Again, you have the right not to. So those of you that are right-handed, my right hand, right leg, gonna slide to the rear. So this is gonna be my dominant side. My non-dominant side is to the front. Those of you that are left-handed, my dominant hand, dominant leg, gonna slide to the rear. So whichever stance that you're going to choose is your stance. My elbows are in tight. My thumbs are kind of around my nose, my eye area. So understand, punches and or kicks can only come at you at a line or a circle. A line or a circle. So we're going to teach you how to address those and options to consider to combat that if someone suddenly attacks you. So the first one is moving toward whatever is moving towards you. Sliding with your left foot first, your right foot second. So it's left, right. If you're left-handed, your right foot is first, your left foot is second. So it's right, left. Then you're going to throw in an open palm strike, if you choose to the center of your body, to the center of their body, to the chest area, to the throat, or to the face. So it's going to be like this, right? Just like this. The next one we're going to show you, they're going to show you doing it to me, is a vertical punch, just like that. The next one is a traditional punch. Again, while I'm stopping and attacking the arm coming at me, just like this. The next one is an elbow. The elbow is going to go to the center of your body, the throat, or the face. And the last one is going to be a block and a knee. So Officer Slottick is up first, or I'm up first because she's going to pick me. So Officer Slottick is right-handed. She's going to get in her stance. Remember, this is safe. This is not safe because we both can touch each other, or this is safe. So if you choose to defend yourself, make sure that you are committed. And understand, my mother told me this when I was 9. Believe you can, know you will. Believe you can win in that situation and know that you will. Just be committed to whatever you choose to do. So again, punches and strikes come at you at a line or a circle. We're going to choose to show you a circle. I'm right-handed, so I most likely would swing with my right. She's going to attack. So right now she's just attacking what's attacking her. Some would call it a block, but she's actually striking me. She's striking me with the bony part of her forearm, and her hand that she's striking me with, which is her left hand, is facing me. So she's actually striking. So again, she's striking me. Now she's going to add in an open palm strike. The open palm strike can be here, here, depending upon the size of the person that's trying to hurt you. So she's going to do both simultaneous. So while she's doing that, yes, the subject can probably punch you again, but he or she is going to have to deal with 2 of your hands coming at them and they will probably not be committed to their punch. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. So next is a vertical or vertical punch. She's gonna do the vertical punch to the same area, here or here. All the while she's blocking my hand swinging at her. And I'll come up to my face with it here. Now do the traditional punch. The traditional punch, if I wave my hands at you, I close my fist, make a fist, my index finger and the finger next to it. Those are the knuckles that I'm striking with, these two knuckles. So this is a traditional punch. Now she's gonna aim it toward my throat. And now she's gonna aim it toward my neck. Next up, she's gonna choose to do an elbow. Her hand can be open like this or closed. Either way, she's striking with this part of her elbow, this area, or this area. All the while she's blocking. She's fairly tall, so she's gonna be able to strike the neck area or go below to the belly area. The next one is going to be, she's going to strike and she's gonna almost dive. Some people would call it a spear technique. So she's gonna dive at the hand coming at her. She's gonna put this forearm, her right forearm, up by my neck. She's gonna pull my shoulder down and throw a knee. With the knee that she's throwing, the toe, her right knee, her toe is gonna be pointed down. It's not gonna be pointed like this. So she's gonna go, strike, pull, down. So she's either gonna hit me in the groin area, abdomen area, chest area, face area, depending upon the height of the subject. So again, so it's not very difficult to do that. You just have to be committed. So she's gonna kind of put that together and you're gonna see her deal with a sudden attack. So if I'm walking toward her, she's jogging with her family or jogging by herself or walking by herself, I make a commitment to come at her like this, or I'm walking at her. She's gonna get in her stance, recognize the threat. She's gonna do a front kick and then punch. Do it again, kick, punch. So she kind of puts it all together and attacks what's attacking her. Now, if someone were to do a neck grab, neck grabs are not fun. So let's just do it on this side. My hands are here, neck grab. She's gonna rotate her shoulder on the side of that I'm on behind me and come up straight up in the air with this and then come down. Because the key is to stop this person from blocking your air passage. So I do that, come down, and then she turns right toward me and attacks. So go a little slower here, go slower here. She comes down and turns immediately toward me and then attacks. She's probably gonna throw a knee because her leg is set up to do that. So she's stopping the choke. Releasing my hands is not necessarily important. She's stopping herself from being choked and then she's gonna attack. The other one is face to face. No one's gonna choke you like Frankenstein. They're probably gonna choke like this. But the key is her hands are gonna go straight up in the air on the outside, and she's gonna turn towards you all. And you see how my fingers, unless my fingers can elongate, which they cannot stretch, I'm gonna be in trouble, and then she's gonna break it, and she's gonna attack me. Turn around, and she's gonna grab me again. So do it again here. Raise her hand straight up in the air, turn, and then she's gonna come at me. From the rear, it's the same thing. Here, hand straight up in the air, turn, and then she attacks. One more time, straight up in the air, turn, attack. Going up. So Officer Matviak, now let's say I'm in a situation where I'm the aggressor. I'm gonna show you what it's gonna look like first. I'm going to be the victim. She's going to be the aggressor. She's going to push me to the floor. And I come up like this. Remember, my left foot is forward. My left hand is forward. If she circles, I change. Always keeping my lead leg, my top leg out. Doesn't matter which one. When she gives me space, I get up. I'm in my stance, and I can switch. So are you comfortable with that fall? Yeah. So the fall, the key to the fall is throwing your hands out, dropping your chin. Instead of doing this, she's not bracing her fall. She's letting herself fall. She's smacking the ground. Not necessarily hard, but if you do not brace your fall, then you can fall and your legs can go over your head, and that would not be good. All she's actually doing is kind of a curtsy like I did, throwing that leg behind her and kind of almost sitting on her butt. So here you go here, right? Now, if she did not do that, it would be bad. So I follow her and she follows me, right? And then if I come close, she can kick here or kick at the knee, which would be really, really bad, but space is created. Now she's gonna get up, fix her belt. She's gonna get up and deal with the threat the way in which we're doing, all right? Keeping it really, really simple. Do not think that your objective is to get away. Your objective is not to stand there and have a fight for 15 minutes. Your objective is to do whatever you can do to get away from this person or persons. You have to do that. That's why it's key sometimes not to have too much valuable jewelry on you, because we get concerned about that. If you travel with a family member or little ones, having a plan, right? Because the body cannot go where the mind has never traveled. If you assume that you're going to be able to rise to the occasion doing an active incident like this, you're not being honest and forthcoming with yourself. You have to mentally prepare and go over what you're going to do and take charge of that situation and get your loved ones in a safe situation or in a safe location, and then address the threat or run. If you think that you can outrun everyone, unless you're running all the time in every outfit you have, it's not going to be necessarily successful. There's a term called fight or flight. The fight or flight response, it's actually called the acute stress response. It's the body's physiological response to a threat or a perceived threat. So you get dilated pupils, your excessive heart rate or breathing, or trembling. Your skin becomes pale or flush. To minimize the way in which your body shuts down, you mentally have to go over some options to consider to address many different threats. It takes 2 to 3 seconds a day or 2 to 3 minutes, depending upon how creative you want to be with the what if. But going over the what if daily is very, very important, because if you don't do it, when the what if happens, you get and everyone freezes because it's natural. Violence is not innate. Violence is not natural for people. So it's important that you go over the what if, so when a tragic incident occurs or your perception of a traumatic incident occurs, you're not shutting down for too long. We're going to go over a front grab, right? So suppose someone grabs you in the front. The key is to recognize it, because once I lock my hands, it may be a little bit more difficult, even though she's done this before. Now, you see how she made an adjustment? So basically all she did, I grab her and lock my hand. She's going to push right towards my head, because wherever the head goes, the body must follow. And from there, she's going to grab shirt, neck, and start kneeing me. But the key would be to catch that, recognize that from the onset, and go right into that. Because no matter how long my arms are, I can't grab her like that. So it's important that you address whatever challenge you're faced with right off the bat. So you have to be keeping your head on a swivel and being very cognizant and pay attention to your instincts. We have walked into rooms before as citizens and felt bad energy. If you can't leave, put yourself in a very tactical situation so you can observe the energy in the room and the people in the room. Do not just negate the fact that you feel bad energy in a room. Get out of that room if you can. The other one is, if this way from behind, all she's going to do is step forward turn her hips out. So she's gonna step forward, trapping the hands, step forward, turn her hips out, and then address the threat. So the grab is from behind, she's gonna trap the hands, step forward, and now see how she's addressing me? She's not letting me tackle her and drive her to the floor. As soon as she starts to do this and then she throws a knee, I'm gonna probably let her go because I don't wanna get knee in the groin and stuff like that. It's very important that we are aware of that. So we don't get too far ahead of ourselves. She's gonna go over elbow strikes and knee strikes. Knee strike first. So she would grab neck, shoulder, shirt, neck, shoulder, or shirt. She's pulling the shoulders to you or to her, or elbow strikes. All right. So elbow strikes are very important. One time we had, are there any questions? No, right? We've had several questions in the past because we do these virtual presentations often. This is a tactical pen. I bought it on Amazon. It's about $9. Sometimes it's less. It writes really well. It's kind of thick, but sometimes I jog with it. This has a window break or glass break at the tip, and I jog with it in my hand. It's a great defensive tool for hammer fist. This is an expandable baton. This is a 24-inch one, but they sell them at 16. They sell them at probably 12 or 6 inches, depends. So when I jog with it, obviously it's closed, and I jog with it in my hand. I have several of them. So you see this on a lot of officers in Central Florida, but this is a longer one. You don't necessarily need this. If you pull out a weapon, you must be able to articulate why you pulled out that weapon, but you must be committed to using that weapon, because the worst thing to happen is to have someone wanting to hurt us take the weapon from us and then use it against us. So don't use the weapon unless you want to use the weapon. Rear choke. Choke from the rear. It is not fun. In certain arenas, you would call it a rear naked choke. So recognizing it here is important, as opposed to when it's locked in. You see it on mixed martial arts. The reason why it's important is because Central Florida has a large collection of mixed martial arts gyms, which means a lot of people know how to apply it. The best thing to do is not be caught in one, but if you recognize it, she would drop her chin, pull down in this kind of a grip. They call it kind of like a monkey grip almost. She's pulling down, she's gonna step forward with this foot. She's gonna drop her shoulder, bring this foot across, right? And then she can strike or knee strike or whatever. She's gonna go do it again slow. It's really not that difficult. Here, she recognizes it, drops her chin, steps forward, drops her shoulder closest to my body, and spins out. She has to get out of this, because if this gets locked in, then someone can go to sleep in 5 to maybe 7 seconds, 8 seconds. It's not fun. So the key again is recognizing this, dropping your chin, pulling the hand down slightly. She's not exaggerating it. She's just pulling it down slightly, and she's going to work with moving out of the choke. All right? Keeping it really, really simple, getting out of the choke. So imagine Officer Matthew has this tactical pen. I'm not going to give her the tactical pen because she might hit me with it. So she's going to do hammer fist as if she had a pen, and she's going to hit the blue pad. So hammer fist down there you go. And she's going slow because we're trying to display this to you. But in real life, she would go fast, Exactly. And as she's doing this, she's going to walk toward me and put more pressure on me, right? So it's not necessarily like this. She's coming down like this. Now imagine if she had a pen or a baton in her hand, or a small bat in her hand, or a branch in her hand. or something in her hand that was a blunt object, even a cell phone. I know a lot of us love our cell phones, but if our lives are in danger or someone's life that in danger that we care for, you can use that as a blunt object and attack who's attacking you. The key would be, as she's doing that, to yell something like fire, yell something to draw the attention of those around you, because the more people that can come to your aid, the better. Hopefully no one's just taking pictures or video of it. Hopefully someone is calling 911. And it's imperative that we don't assume that someone else is calling 911 when tragedy strikes, that we're actually calling 911, because we all see things differently. Again, the other thing, knee strike. She grabs the pad, throws a knee. Good. You see how she's committed? So it's important. Go ahead. Good thing I looked down. She would have hit me again. So throwing a knee is important, but pulling the subject to you is even just as important. Mount. Huh? So Officer Stalking is going to lay on her back. If for some reason bad guy, bad woman mounts you, in mixed martial arts, it's called a full mount. That means her legs are inside of my legs. That means the bad person's hips are driving into your solar plexus, which means it's cutting off your air. That means the bad guy, bad woman's quads, their legs are squeezing your ribs together. It's important. You see how she put her hands here or here to stop me? She's going to bring her heels into her butt. She's going to lift up her waist. See how just that little thing forces me to come forward? Then she's going to, there's so many different ways you can do it. This is just one option. She's going to pull my elbow down here. She can do it with both or one. After she throws me off balance like this, she's going to pull in, and she's going to drive that hip that's facing you, that's closest to you, into the ground, and lift up this side and turn me over. And now she's in my guard. The key is for her not to stay on the bottom. Now I'm in a bad situation, and she can strike, 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 and then get up. So not too hard. So she then gets up. We're going to go back down and show you it again. In mixed martial arts, some of you may watch some mixed martial arts on television. They call it the full mount. So here, the key, she brings her toes, her heels into her butt. She can trap one leg if she chooses, and then she can throw me off, grab the elbow turn, and now she's inside my guard. All right? It looks difficult. It can be depending upon the skill set of the bad person trying to hurt you, but that is, in summation, is a quick way to get up. Are there questions? Are there any questions for us? Hair pull. So she's going to pull my hair, right? My long hair. No. So Officer Stalking is I'm going to do it first, show you it slowly, and then she's going to do it. So she's going to pull my hair with her right hand. I'm going to trap the hand. One. There's only three or four moves. So one is trap the hand. Two is turn my hips toward her, bringing my left foot behind her, like this. Three is coming up here like this, driving her hand up in the air because she's still holding on to my hair. And four, if I choose to either just run or strike her knee and then run. So again, it's grabbing, stopping what's about to hurt you, stepping back, 2, turning, 3, kicking or just running, 4. So she's going to show you because she has hair and I don't. So she's going to trap the hand that's holding her, even if it's 2 hands, does not matter. She's going to turn toward me slowly, turn the other way, dropping that back, right, go under. Now my hand is turned this way. Now she can either run or use this leg and kick my knee. But either way, if she does it faster, my arm and wrist can go snap, crackle, pop. So again, really slowly here. She's going to turn right toward me, come under, and then she's going to go or she's going to strike and go. The key to having your hair pulled and defending it is not running away, but turning into, because you don't want, your neck is not supposed to go like this, and whomever's holding your hair can do this to your head, and that's not healthy because our necks were not meant to do that. So it seems like a lot, but we're actually, everything that we're doing is all in here and in here. Everything is not out here, it's in here. So again, ladies, come beside me. So if you're in your stance, you're gonna block, strike. Block, open palm. One more time, open palm. Now vertical punch, vertical punch. One more time, vertical punch. Now conventional punch, conventional punch. One more time, conventional punch. Now elbow strike, hand open or hand closed. One more time, now spear. With the knee, sorry, with the knee, right? So if there's no more questions, I can't wait. Well, Rich Patterson and these lovely ladies will be there next year because I'm retiring January 15th.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
you're retiring? You can't leave us.
No, I mean, I'm not leaving the state. I love Florida, but I am retiring. I need to take advantage of AARP. You know?
All right. Very true.
23 years and 8 months is long enough.
We'll bring him back as a special guest.
All right. Sounds good. This is so great. This is great stuff, everything you're showing here, and very useful. So we didn't receive any specific questions from our attendees, but I was thinking of a question as you were showing all this, and you kind of addressed this. When should people take these actions? So of course, not in every situation you want to even, you mentioned if you're going to fight, make sure you're ready to fight. But certainly if you know they have a weapon, that sort of thing, what do you recommend as far as when to take action like this and when not?
You take action when you feel that you have no other option. Most people are not violent. Violence is not innate. It's not natural for people to do, for the most part. Yes, there are people who don't like to do it, but are very good at it. What I mean by that is when you feel that you've expelled and exhausted all your other options, you may have to defend yourself, but you have to be able to articulate it. You have to, and it's not one of those, well, you know what I mean. No, we don't know what you mean, because when law enforcement arrives on the scene, you're going to have to verbally articulate what you did and why you did it, and then write down what you did and why you did it. So if you've exhausted all other resources, like trying to walk away, like trying your best and doing your best to avoid a verbal confrontation and not getting in someone's face and not saying, I dare you to hit me, we have to learn self-control. And sometimes recognizing the energy that's in the room, if it's bad energy, do your best to get out of that situation. Sometimes you can't, it's not that simple, but I say self-preservation and self-control is the key. Avoid, avoid, avoid. And when you've exhausted all your resources, you may have to defend yourself or someone else. But you must be committed to it, and you must be able to articulate why you're doing what you're doing or why you did what you did.
The last resort, really.
Yes, it is very much a last resort.
So if you know somebody has a weapon or you're seeing a weapon, you have a recommendation?
People get hurt. So get out of that situation as best you can. It's imperative. Yes, in this state, you have a right to carry one, but sometimes they can be more trouble than they're worth. Get out of that situation. And a lot of times we, unfortunately, our egos and our emotions take over, and we begin to fight, or we begin to yell, or we begin to scream at someone else that we're angry with. I would say to you, self-control and get out of that situation or avoid that person or persons to the best of your ability.
All right. Well, we are so grateful for the partnership with Orlando Police Department and the fact that you guys have been coming back year after year, sharing this great information. So if there's no other questions, we're going to conclude our webinar tonight. So thank you
all very much. Appreciate these lovely officers and Officer Rich Patterson. God bless you all. Happy Halloween if you celebrate. Thanksgiving's coming up, so happy Turkey Day, whatever you celebrate. God bless.
Yes, thank you so much. So please, if you're still with us, don't go away yet, because we just have a couple things. Main thing, we have a survey at the end of this webinar we are asking you to take so that you can give us feedback on if you found this information useful and anything we could do going forward. So we thank OPD officers Kirkpatrick and Patterson and the female officers who joined us for that presentation on self-defense. The Orange County Clerk of Courts, Tiffany Moore Russell, thanks you so much and is thrilled to provide these forms free to the community as education to the community for you. And so we're so happy that you joined us for this domestic violence awareness workshop. Again, we hope you enjoyed all the topics discussed, and a big thank you to all our wonderful partners, Harbor House, Victim Service Center, Orlando Police Department, and our own deputy clerks here at the Orange County Clerk of Courts office. We couldn't do it without everyone who's been involved, especially our partners. Now, once posted, you may view this video directly from our website. We had that question, where can I get the PowerPoint? Where can I view it? We'll go to our website, myorangeclerk.com, and we'll have it on that website in the next day or two once it gets uploaded, and you'll find it in our news section. Thank you for joining us. Please don't forget to fill out the survey at the end of this webinar so we can get your feedback. Thank you and have a great evening. Bye.